Hi. Okay, well, I'm sorry that I'm unable to do my live show today on KONR radio. There were technical difficulties that were happening, and I had to make a choice to cancel my guest and save it for next week. But I still want to use this time slot to connect with you and to talk to you and hopefully hear from you as well. I have my laptop open over here because sometimes I can't see comments that people share in real time as I'm doing this live Facebook moment with you. So I want to invite you to come to this with me and really put everything down. Put your side down, put all the emotions that are swirling around us down. Just put everything down and try to come to this exchange with me as neutral and as open and as curious and as willing as you possibly can. And let's see what we might be able to discover by using what's happening around yet another assassination, another act of gun violence in our country, and what it's bringing up for us and how it's being used and manipulated to create the divided states of America. You know, it's not an accident that the saying goes, united we stand and divided we fall. And so the first thing I want to put out to you to consider and offer thoughts on is, are you, and this is, let me ask these questions from myself. Am I attaching myself to the old design model of separation, right and wrong, one side versus the other, duality, right? Am I attaching myself? Am I living out of the old design model that inherently creates sides, right and wrong, division, white or black? There's no gray area in the old design model as you're seeing, right? Or am I consciously recognizing the futileness of that? And am I consciously realizing that I've left that behind, though oftentimes it sticks to my foot, my shoe like a piece of gum, right? Or am I consciously willing to use this moment that's unfolding in a personal way that gives me the chance to navigate this from a different and fresh perspective? Now, we can clearly see that for millions of people, the answer is no, because the knee-jerk reaction that is built into the old design model of separation, if you're not mindful of it, if you're not curious about it, you will find yourself in one or the other. However, I'm here today not necessarily with answers, but with some possibilities of how else we can look at this and what different filters might be available to us so that we can see something different. And perhaps most importantly, we can be someone different. And so I've was looking up some words before coming online with you today, because one of the things I truly believe is that whatever is personal is universal, and whatever is universal is personal. We can always find ourselves in the collective narrative, okay? However, when we utilize blame as a defense mechanism to avoid looking at ourselves to see how it might be that we are somehow in our own lives doing the same kind of behavior that we are pointing the finger at in the collective experience, we miss not just an opportunity to do something different that perhaps offers us a healthier process, but we also miss the opportunity to up-level our emotional maturity. And as I'm talking, I'd love for you to be thinking about maybe a personal relationship that is challenged right now. Perhaps there's a personal or professional relationship where there's some stuck energy, there's some tenderness, there's some hurt. There's some of what you're seeing happening out there happening in here. And so this is calling on us to be willing to use this moment to look within. And here's the thing, we don't like to look within. It's far easier, and the old design model and the program and the conditioning from that model has made it quite easy for us to not look within. Instead, we look outward, we blame, we project. Oftentimes, we're in situations in our personal or professional relationships where the person has one set of rules for themselves and another set of rules for you or for me. Or perhaps you have one set of rules for yourself and someone's trying to bring to your attention that they, in that relationship, that you have a whole nother set of rules for them. And we know that in our personal relationships, when we have moments like that, it's insanity. It's frustrating. You can't advance. You can't find common ground because there's one set of rules for this person and one set of rules for this person. One set of rules for this group about when something happens, and yet a whole nother set of rules for when it happens to the other group. And so if you're going to be in that kind of game, just know that it has a very specific outcome. Division. And so the question is, are we going to attach ourselves to division? Are we going to, in 2025, attach ourselves to an old program by which there's a right and a wrong? Or are we going to use this moment to go, wait a second, time out. This is not going to work. You know, we're already seeing how rapidly this one incident is being used in a very manipulative way, and mindfully so, to create division, to make one group right, the other group wrong, to make one group righteous, to make the other group wrong. And my question to you is that really how you want to live? Is that really who you want to be? Is that really how you want to do this moment? If the answer is yes, so much love. But if the answer is no, then let's continue talking about this so that we can see what the new design model offers us. Again, the old design model is what we know. It's what we do. It's what we've done. It's the way we've been told to do it. But if there's something in you that's tender or hurting, if there's something in you that's saying, now wait a second, how come when this same thing happened over here, it was dismissed, it was devalued, it was mocked, and it was ridiculed. But when it happens over here, it's elevated to this very high level of acknowledgement. This is the kind of breakdown we have an opportunity to do right now. And I would encourage you to join me in tapping the brakes. If you can, throw it into park and consider how we can move with this in a way that's different than the mob mentality, that's different than the masses. Because I don't have an interest in being involved in the divided states of America. I have an interest in being involved in the United States of America. And by states these days, I mean states of consciousness. So we could go back and forth, and people are. Well, what about this? Well, what about that? Okay? Not that each one of those whatabouts isn't justified and justifiable and worth listening to. However, if we don't have some new tools and new mechanisms, if we don't step up to our own opportunity to be the leaders in this conversation, because let's face it, there are leaders in our country right now that get off on division. That's just truth. Okay, there's not a call for unification right now from the highest levels of our government. There's not a call for calm. There's not a call for compassion and discussion. No, that's not the call that's happening. Rather, the call is one of division. Go get them. We're going to hunt them down, right? There's only one right way. And I think that at this point in my experience, that's just not my way, because there isn't one way. Clearly, there are many, many ways. So let's look at some of the things that are going on with this situation. We have a double standard, like I just said. One set of rules for this group of people, another set of rules for this group of people. A double standard. When it happens to this group of people, when it happens to these people, it's not seen as reverent, relevant, sacred, important. But when it happens over here to this group or these people, it is. So right then and there, we have a problem. Because if we have two sets of rules versus a common ground to start from, that conversation is going to loop and go around in circles. The other thing that we're experiencing and seeing is projection of blame. It takes maturity. It takes a willingness to lay down the I, the letter I, the I of the ego self. It takes maturity to put that down and say, okay, you know what? I'm not sure I really agree with you, and I'm not sure I even really want to do this. However, what I am for is the we. I am for the collective. I am for the two of us, the three of us, the group of us. And so I'm going to be willing to put down all of my own defensiveness and everything that I think about this. And I'm going to meet you in the middle and listen with an open heart to what it is that I've said or done, that though I may feel was nothing wrong with it, but I'm hearing from you may have landed in a way that I didn't intend, but nonetheless is still a reality for you. That's the moment where we are at. And I don't know, aside from having a national or local talk show where the phone lines are open, which I had hoped to have today, where we can have this processing and have this kind of dialogue. And so here I am, encouraging us to perhaps take the lead. And like I said in my other video, maybe you just need some time. Maybe this is the week where you don't talk. Maybe this is the week where you just say, you know what? I need more time to process this. I think it's going to be important for me not to say anything until I can speak from love. Maybe you're at a point right now with someone where you're saying, you know what? Can we come up with a fresh set of agreements so that we can both have a conversation, not where we defend and explain, not where we talk over each other, not where we dismiss and devalue the other person's experience, not where we use jargon like, I'm sorry you feel that way, but rather an agreement between adults who are willing to put down the I for the we, because ultimately that's what personal relationships and this collective experience is asking for us. And so projection, double standards, blame as a defense, blaming other people as a defense, instead of being willing to take a look at yourself. Like somebody posted a post, I actually know her, Lisa Jameson, I think, posted a post, and she shared this experience that she had with a friend of hers. Her friend was mourning the loss of Charlie Kirk and saw him as a motivational speaker and had moments, on tape or quotes where he was that person. And this friend was willing to hear Lisa share other moments where that same person was speaking with a different tongue, was speaking perhaps more unlovingly, without kindness, without compassion. And as a result of the two of them being willing to listen without feeling threatened by what the other person's perception and perspective is, they were able to realize that really neither of them had the full profile of this one person. This is what we have the opportunity to do today. I mean, let's face it, as the Killers sing in their song, we've got a problem with guns in this country. And we have for a very, very, very long time. And whether it is Melissa Hartman and her husband being assassinated, whether it's Charlie Kirk, whether it's children in schools, children praying in churches, adults in movie theaters, we have a very long list just in 2025 alone where gun violence took innocent lives. And so one of the deeper questions is, are we really wanting to remain the kind of people and nation where a distorted interpretation of our rights is used to create a world in which violence is accepted because we believe that there's no other choice? I mean, this is bringing up the big, deep questions for us if we want to have a conversation with. And the other thing, too, is this idea, as I started my time with you today, that I think is utmost important, pre-existing templates. I want to invite you to join me to step out of the pre-existing template that says there's one side that's right. I want to invite you to step out of the pre-existing template that continues to cause divisiveness amongst us. I want to invite you to see if you're being called to be the one, to put the call out to your kids, your friends, your family, and see who might be willing to agree to some agreements of discussion that might allow us to have a vulnerable, tender conversation that has a space created for it where people can feel safe to speak their truth, especially if it's different than mine, where people can feel safe to be opinionated, even if we feel that opinion is not rooted in the same values that we ourselves have. Or are we going to just attach ourselves to the train of separation and take this country off the cliffs? It's not okay. It's not okay to be calling out any group of people and using them as the source of blame while deflecting that experience of ourselves. This is immature. This is emotional immaturity. This is patriarchy at its finest. This is a way that hasn't been serving us for hundreds, if not thousands of years. Do you believe that you have the capacity and the power to change the direction of this conversation? I hope you do. I believe it. I believe it. And that's why I'm here with you today, to see what it is that you might be thinking about what it is that we're talking about today, that you would feel safe enough to put into the comments. But this idea of seeing, for example, like I'll give you a personal example. You know, as a progressive, well, let me say it this way. As a global citizen anchored in the new design for living, I don't hold a value for violence. And as an empath, it's extremely difficult for me to live in a world where we have so much violence and where we're allowing so much violence and where we see the NRA and gun lobbyists and, you know, weapons that we supply other countries with to kill children and innocent people, you know, under the illusion of, you know, it's our right to defend ourselves. Like, I'm not in that anymore. That is so old. I don't relate to that anymore. And so for me, no matter who it is that is at the end of gun violence, it's tragic and it can be corrected, not just for one side or one person, but for all of us. But we are never going to get there if we don't have the capacity to use this moment to retrain ourselves on how to have conversations. We're never going to have a different outcome if we can't leave the I at the door so that we can walk into a room where the only thing that exists is the we. How do we move forward from here? Do we want to move forward from here? Are we willing to compromise and put down a little bit of this and a little bit of that so that we can find common ground from which we can build a better tomorrow, build a better society for our kids? Like, it's difficult for people to watch, Melissa Hartman and her husband, who were assassinated a couple of months ago in their home. It is difficult for that group of people, let alone their kids and their family, to have not had the President of the United States show up for that funeral right while she lay in state in the state capitol. It's difficult. And we can understand that, because the other side is experiencing their own difficulty today. And yet we see that this one man is receiving gestures that the other side is saying, well, wait a minute, why not Melissa? Why didn't the president go to her funeral? Why didn't football games honor her before they started? Why isn't the nation's flag flown at half-mast for her? Why are people being pardoned when they tried to kill police officers who tried to stop violence on January 6th? Like, you can hear how each side has valid questions as to why this here and not here. And so in the new design model, we approach these conversations boldly. We seek them out because we know that we are here to unearth, through our own willingness, the distorted filters and the distortion that has created this reality. And we start with ourselves. We start with our own relationships. We start with what perhaps we've allowed that no longer feels right. We start with our new way, the new design of our own lives, where we go, gosh, I kind of realize all this time I've just allowed that behavior from this other person because I had this embedded program that said there was no other choice. This is just what you do, and now it doesn't feel right anymore. Why? Because we've grown. We're changing. We're maturing. We're outgrowing old ways in which we've done things. We are reassessing. Does that really work for me? And when the answer is no, we have to do a personal deep dive that goes, okay, what's going on? I have a lot of people going through this and myself right now, where we are taking the time to go, how do I do this from a place of love for myself and love for the others? And all we can really do is invite people to meet us in a place of love and agreement, to have fresh conversations where we listen to each other. And we say things like, you know what? I'm hearing my words and actions landed in your heart in a way that I didn't intend. And I want to acknowledge that. Instead of being defensive and saying, well, I can't help how you feel about that, or whatever it is that we spew out towards each other. Do you hear the difference? Like, forgiveness doesn't necessarily create trust and safety again. You don't need the other person to make amends. However, if we really want to move on into the new design model, where everybody is heard, where everybody's feelings are valid, where we make amends not for the other person, but for ourselves, where we realize that we're getting feedback that might counter how we believe ourselves to be. And we're willing to go, that's contradictory to how I think I am. I kind of walk around as, this person that's love and light, but I'm hearing you say that something I said that I'm not conscious of and wasn't aware of hurt you. And because I want to be in alignment with my best self, and because I'm here for the we and not the I, because I know that my ego is always going to have me in separation, because I know my ego is always going to make you wrong, I know that my ego is always going to protect me, protect my fragile identity, because that's all it knows how to do, I'm going to override that. Because I can. In this moment of awareness and willingness. And I'm going to make amends so that I can come back into alignment with who it is I say I am. Do you know how powerful that is? Do you know how healing that is? Like, can you imagine if 100 people came together in a room and chose to have that experience, even if they went back to their old way? Can you imagine if we just gave ourselves permission to have the experiment of that? That would be remarkable. Let's see, Roger has put here, I will commit to generate the questions and ask them. This conversation is resonating with me. I appreciate that, because you cannot be in the new design model in the old version of yourself. Something's got to give. And this is the moment we're in right now. If you want to stay in the old design model, I don't have judgment about that. All I'm bringing to our attention today is that's going to have a particular outcome. It's going to have a very specific process, because it is rooted in separation and duality. It has a program with characters, a plot, an ending, a script. And no matter how much you try to be in that way, in a new way, in my personal experience, doesn't work anymore, because the very nature of that model is not interested in a different outcome. And so that is why the new design for living is something I am living inside of every day. And there's no instructions. I'm learning as I go. That's why we have these kinds of exchanges with each other, because this is happening in real time. But I know for sure, without a doubt, that unless we are willing to step out of the way in which it is being reflected back to us right now, unless we are willing to do something different, unless we are willing to be a different person in these moments, we're not going to have a different outcome. So I want to encourage you to think about this today. I want to encourage you to consider where in your personal or professional life you've got tenderness going on. And perhaps you might need to tell those people or that person, you know what? I'm willing to do this from a different place and space, but I need a little bit more time. And while I take that time, I want to ask you a very important question. Are you willing to meet me there as well? Because we have to have fresh agreements. Because if we don't have fresh agreements, then you're not going to get to a new place. You're not going to have a new process. If someone is entrenched in an old way of doing things, we're not going to have a new America if we are unable to step out of this duality and this blame game and this projection of what we are unwilling to own within us. So we project it out onto another person or another group of people until we are all seen as equals. I mean, isn't it like liberty and justice for all? Like what has happened that we've allowed our minds and our consciousness to root us in such division and hatred for another person or group of people? I am not living there. I will not live there anymore. And I accept the consequences that my personal state of consciousness is declaring for me. So perhaps this is a moment to decide, where are you going to stand? Why are you choosing that? Is there another opportunity? Is it possible that we could show up in this old loop of division, separation, right and wrong, projection, blame, gaslighting? I mean, you name it. It's happening on the collective level. Are we willing to not have knee-jerk reactions in our comments? I did have, it wasn't a knee-jerk because I thought it through and then I wrote it. But I was looking at my friend's page the other day, and she was sharing news information, and as a black woman, she was sharing how she was feeling about Charlie Kirk, who has said some pretty horrific things about black people, about African Americans in our country. I mean, he said them. I didn't say him. He said them. You know, and someone posted that they felt like she wasn't being compassionate enough. And I just thought, wow, this is the ultimate hypocrisy. That you're going to exonerate somebody's blatant dismissal of another human being because of their skin color, while asking that very same person who's been belittled by this other person to have the same compassion that the very person you're defending refused to have. Like, that's just insanity. Why do we want to continue that? We can do better. We can do better. But we have to choose it. We have to choose it. Each person has to choose it. And so these are some of the things that are on my heart today. Like I said, I couldn't get on the air today because the station was down, and by the time it went back up, I was on to other things. So I'm open to your comments. And like I said, I work on a platform called Mixcloud, and Mixcloud does offer live interactive streaming, and I'll figure out how I can do that, because what's most important to me is having conversations with you, and this is kind of one-sided until I can see your comments, and that's important to me. It's important for us to have a safe space for dialogue. It's important for us to be able to facilitate tough conversations. I mean, maybe there's people in our community right now that can call a town hall. I would love to have some support in calling a town hall. But we have to have agreements about how we're going to show up for each other. We can't sling hate. We have to come together being willing to look at how the program and conditioning of separation has affected how we look at each other, how we look at our lives, how we look at our own life. Because unless we're willing to do the deep dive and do the tough work of being wrong about something, until we're willing to put down the I so that we can be in the we, we're just going to go around in circles. And I am concerned about the circles that are being created right now. I mean, people getting fired because they're stating opinions. And yet, flags being lowered for somebody who stated their opinions and was tragically shot. I mean, it's a horrible thing what happened to Charlie Kirk. And it's also a horrible thing that's happened to every person in our country that's ever been assassinated by a gun. We got a problem with guns in this country, but we are refusing to look at the cause. The cause, in part, is guns. Guns. But we're unwilling to change our relationship because we have embedded it into this, this right as Americans. Well, until we are willing to mature our conversations, until we are willing to do the deep dive personally, until we are willing to listen to each other, not from our egos, but from our hearts, until we are willing to be curious about why it is that someone is telling us that our behavior hurt them, then we're just going to keep spinning our wheels here. And my concern is that that spinning is going to take us right off the cliff. So I'll end this the same way I've ended everything I've said. You have the power. Are you using it for good? You have the power within you. This is why I'm offering my new mentorship program, From Confusion to Clarity, to help people do the deep dive with some support, because it is challenging to go in and take the shining flashlight on all the darkness that we've avoided. But it's possible. And when you do it, it's liberating. Your freedom, your emotional and mental and spiritual freedom is in your own hands. And if there's any way I can help you, go to CamilleConte.com, check out what I'm offering, and let's help get each other back up on our feet as quickly as possible. Because I truly believe if enough of us say yes to this moment in a way like we never have before, we're going to see change happen in the ways that our hearts truly desire. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sharing your thoughts with me. I'll look at the comments right after I wrap this up, which is happening right now.